Coming up in this episode on the Norwegian Sun, we're at our final port of call on the island of Koh Samui in Thailand, and I take a shore excursion to experience yet more temples, the Big Buddha, and some wonderful lookout points. I'll also share with you some of the final preparations as I get ready to disembark the cruise, and that includes some fun stuff and also some practical advice. Good morning from what looks like it's going to be a beautiful day in Koh Samui. We're actually tendering today. We were originally due to be docked, but that plan seems to have changed. So I think we're just about dropping anchor at the moment. Although the itinerary originally indicated that we'd be docked in Koh Samui, the Freestyle Daily newsletter indicated last night that it was going to be a tender port, so inevitably that's going to cause some logistical issues for departing on shore excursions and anybody who just generally wants to get off the ship. As has been the case throughout this Asian cruise, I'm taking another shore excursion organised through NCL. Today's excursion is called Koh Samui Highlights, and I chose this because it seemed to be the only thing on offer that would give me a broad overview of the island. It came in at a final cost of €105 or about $110 US, but as you'll know from previous vlogs, I do get a $50 reduction on that due to having the more at sea pack. Now the meeting point for my shore excursion was in the theatre, and again it was back to being pretty chaotic, similar to the Vietnam scenario. Each group, when we were called, we were led through the ship to the atrium and then down the central stairs to exit onto a tender. Now for anybody who isn't familiar with the tender process, this is basically when the ship has dropped anchor out at sea because for whatever reason it isn't able to dock at a port, and the ship lifeboats are sometimes used as the tender boats. In this case it's actually local boats that are being used to transport guests to shore, and they seem to have a bigger capacity than perhaps the tender boats might have. So while enjoying the journey of 10 minutes or so to the shore, here's a few quick facts about Koh Samui. It's the second largest island in Thailand. Phuket is actually the first largest. Koh Samui is located in the Gulf of Thailand. Now, the interior of the island is pretty much jungle territory, and the majority of development is on the lower lying coastal strip. So a main road circles the island along by the coast, and that provides access to a number of towns and landmarks and various resorts and so on along the way. Nathan, where the pier is located, is where we're tendering into, and I think it's probably the largest town, and it's also kind of administrative centre. It's also the ferry port for vessels sailing between the mainland and other islands, and also for taking in commercial imports. The shore excursions on offer through NCL more or less fell into three different categories. So one was this overall tour of the island, which I'm doing. Now a second was a visit to an elephant sanctuary, and I know that's the type of thing that people will have certain ethical ideas about, so not for everybody. And the third type of shore excursion was a beach day at one of 2 5-star resorts. Now that was actually quite expensive, and I'm not really sure that it would be worth the value of it, and certainly will be just going to a single destination.
Welcome to Koh Samui. Yeah, this is a Samui Island. Samui belong to the southern part of the Thailand. And I'm introduce myself. My name is Jenny. Nice to meet all of you. I followed the gentleman. What happened today? When you come this island, because the big tourists do not come here every day, and the local people here are very excited. They will wake up early to stand by for everybody.
After disembarking at the pier, coaches were lined up immediately adjacent, and we finally departed from the pier at almost 12 o'clock. So you can see the process from meeting in the theatre at 10 to actually setting off on the shore excursion was pretty lengthy. The shore excursion was basically a circular drive of the island, heading clockwise from Nathan, which is on the west coast. So our first stop of the day was at a Buddhist temple in the northeast of the island, and that was about 45 minutes drive from the pier. We had approximately a 1 hour stay at this location, and although some guests in the group were disappointed that the tour guide wasn't going to give a tour of the temple and its grounds, I was actually quite pleased just to have the opportunity to wander at will and to experience this very beautiful and unique setting. Now, for anybody who wished to enter the actual temple building, the usual standard of dress was required, so shoulders and knees were required to be covered. I knew this in advance, but honestly, after so many temples being visited on this trip, I was quite happy to just relax and enjoy the external surroundings and wear something comfortable and appropriate for the weather, which was 33-degree sunshine today. Stop number 2 was only about 10 minutes drive from the temple, and that was at the Big Buddha, which is probably one of the most well-known landmarks on Koh Samui. The Big Buddha statue is at the top of a flight of stairs, and it certainly makes one feel pretty insignificant standing beside this enormous statue. There are also fantastic views over the coastline from the area at the top. There was also about an hour time allocated there for just free exploration, and at the base of the Buddha statue there is a village-like setting, so there were plenty of souvenir shops and eating and drinking opportunities to experience. Now, despite the fact that there were multiple coaches from NCL's shore excursions as well as other visitors to Koh Samui, it didn't feel particularly crowded, and there was certainly plenty of opportunity to get photos and so on. Back on board the coach, we continued our clockwise tour of the island. We passed several 4- and 5-star resorts en route, as well as normal commercial activities of everyday life on the island. Now, the tour guide was particularly excited to point out the Four Seasons Resort, as it's recently been used as the filming location for season 3 of the White Lotus TV series. She explained that the Koh Samui residents were very proud to have their island showcased internationally, and that they were hoping for a significant uptick in visitor numbers to the island as a result of all of this publicity. Our third and final stop on the tour was for a refreshment and comfort break at a bar and restaurant facility which had wonderful viewing terraces overlooking the Cove. That was approximately for 30 minutes. As we made our way back to Nathan, I had hoped that there'd be a little time before needing to board the tender to just generally explore around the town. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case, and as we arrived at the pier, it was evident that there was a significant line forming. Nonetheless, it moved pretty quickly. The tender operations were fairly efficient, and the tender ride back to the ship as the sun was starting to go down was a lovely end to our last port of call. All aboard time was due to be 5:30, and my tender actually arrived back literally just at 5:30, and there were still several coming after that. So from my day on Koh Samui, I would have to say that this was probably my favourite island of all that we have visited on this trip. It's definitely something that I would like to come back and experience as a land-based visit, and it just felt really comfortable and a nice place to explore. After sundown, life on board continued in the usual evening pattern. Firstly, the show in the theatre, and that was actually one of NCL's production shows. It was the third on this cruise. It was called Rock You Tonight. Now, as usual, no recordings were permitted, but I am happy to report that this was by far the best of the production shows. The other two, definitely you will have seen from my vlogs, they were not good. The standard on this was much better than the others. Now, bizarrely, although it's not our last day at sea yet, it's our second last night, after the production show we had NCL's farewell performance. Now, I've only been on 2 NCL cruises, but from each of those I gather that this is a standard thing where they do a little song and they have imagery of different crew members on board, and then representatives of each of those teams actually join the senior officers on stage, generally to wave farewell. On the two occasions that I've seen this, I've been torn between thinking it's really cheesy or alternatively thinking it's nice, it's probably a little bit sentimental. So let me know in the comments what you think, if it's a regular NCL thing and what you actually think of it. Now, incidentally, there were also announcements made to say that it was acceptable to film this.
Raise your voice, 'cause you are Norwegian, our legacy lives in you. We are a family, the pride of the land and sea, and wherever you roam, you'll find a home inside our memory. And wherever you roam, you'll find a home inside our memory. We are a family, and in our hearts you'll always be the reach for all life will allow. 'Cause you are Norwegian now. We are a family, and in our hearts you'll always be your reach for all life will allow. 'Cause you are Norwegian. You are Norwegian. You are Norwegian.
Dinner was in the main dining room, and because I was in conversation with guests at the next table, I forgot to take photos. After that, I finished the night by watching the finale of the karaoke contest that had been running all cruise. Good morning from the Gulf of Thailand. It's our final sea day, and it's our final day of the cruise. So we're currently still just exiting the Gulf of Thailand. We're off the coast of Malaysia. Malaysia is on our starboard side, and we're heading towards Singapore. Weather today is promised to be sunny and temperatures up to about 27 or 28 degrees. Sea looks calm, so all is good for some pleasant final sunshine on the day of the cruise. After a leisurely breakfast in the outdoor buffet area at the back of the ship, it was a beautiful day for a walk around the outer decks. But being the final cruise day, there was also a lot of practical matters to attend to. First one of those is trying to correct something that had occurred. Now, a few days ago, I had indicated on paperwork that I wished to do self-disembarkation when we arrive in Singapore. Despite this, however, I received literature in my stateroom last night, which provided me with a much later disembarkation time. So self-disembarkation is available for guests who are willing to take their own luggage ashore, and generally that means being able to leave the ship as soon as it's cleared. Now, assisted disembarkation involves having to have your luggage packed up and left outside your stateroom on the last night of the cruise. The crew will then take it to the hold or the decks below for the night, and they will then transport it to the terminal building for you to collect it there when you go ashore on disembarkation morning. So in order to sort this out and get my self-disembarkation time, it meant a trip to guest services. Now, while I was there, I was completely shocked to find that many people in the queue were there to remove gratuities. Now, I won't indicate the particular nationalities that were doing this. It did seem to be particularly prevalent with one country, and it's, I think, predominantly cruisers from a country where generally they may have cruised with cruise lines where gratuities are included in the basic fare, so found this much different by comparison. Today was also the day when our passports were finally returned. Now, if you've seen the first episode in this series, you'll know that all of our passports had to be handed over on embarkation day in Bali. I'm happy to report that my passport was redeemed safely, and it would seem that the Indonesian, Vietnamese and Thai authorities are stamp happy, as my passport now has a significant number of new passport stamps for entry and exit to all of those locations. The other final practicality to be completed was the Singapore arrival card. Now, this can only be done within 3 days of arrival in Singapore, and it's an online process. Because I had heard from some people who had attempted to do this over the past couple of days and they experienced difficulties with Wi-Fi connections, I decided that the best option was to do it when I was actually in the atrium at the centre of the ship, as it generally tends to have the strongest Wi-Fi signal. Happily, all was fine and I received all my authorization and acknowledgement instantly. So that might be something to bear in mind if you're on the Norwegian Sun and are in that situation. Guest services staff did appear to be on hand to assist those who were having problems. After spending some time doing the inevitable packing, dinner was my final specialty offering. Now, because I had the More at Sea package, I was entitled to 4 specialty restaurants, so this was my final one, and it was in Moderno, which is the Brazilian restaurant. It was my first experience of this restaurant, my first experience eating in a Brazilian restaurant. Now, it's not one that I will be inclined to repeat. It's definitely for meat lovers, no problem with that. There are up to 6 different varieties of meat on offer. And the problem for me was that I felt the whole process of this business of turning up the green side of a card to indicate when you want meat, and then the red side when you want a rest and an opportunity to eat the rest of the food, that combined with delays in receiving the side orders all felt that it was a really unsatisfactory experience. So I'm not sure if it was just the way it was operating on this cruise or if that's generally the Brazilian restaurant concept on NCL. Later, the show in the theatre was a guest act that had performed earlier in the cruise, Ruben Lorente, and the vast majority of his performance seemed to be songs of a spiritual nature that weren't instantly recognisable. Later on, as I was having one last wander around the ship, the band from the main theatre were performing in the atrium, and they were doing quite a diverse mix of music, which seemed to be going down well with the assembled crowd. Coming up next time in the final vlog in this series, it's disembarkation day in Singapore, and I'll show you what that process was like, as well as providing you with some details on a post-cruise stay in Singapore. I'll also answer the all-important question of how much did this cruise actually cost, and you will be surprised, and also would I recommend it. So I hope you'll join me for that final vlog. And as always, for now, could I please ask that if you found this useful or informative, that you would hit the like button. And if you'd like to stay up to date on when the next vlog is coming out, please do consider subscribing to the channel. For now, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time in Singapore.